Welcome to the Modern Monk podcast. This is episode number 17. We're talking about how to use AI to become more productive. My name is Cormac Taylor. I'm here with Toby Chilver. How you doing, Toads?
I'm feeling good. Here we go.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. I'm not sure we have to define terms here. We know what AI is. So how have we been using AI recently?
Okay, I want to caveat this just straight off the bat that I never didn't do computer science. One of our close friends did. I'm not like all over AI. I'm not reading the news about it. But I am an avid user. So that's where my perception, opinions are coming from. And for me, the biggest benefits have just been having dirty work done for you, essentially. Like saving time on not having to do dirty work and essentially getting access to outputs or results that you would never get just because the work was so dirty. Like you wouldn't even consider that as something that's a high enough ROI activity to be able to do it. But you can just feed it to ChatGPT and you get it back.
Just the dirty work.
Yeah.
It is pretty nice. It's the things that maybe 10 years ago you would have to outsource to a VA in the Philippines. You can now just get ChatGPT to do it in a few seconds.
Yeah, and you get a pretty high level of accuracy and personalized advice, which is the biggest thing. Like the amount of money that people charge for personalized advice on anything when they're the expert of it, I think is underrated. So that's just like a crazy thing to be able to tap into for such a small price, to get personalized advice on the context of your exact scenario. Because advice changes. Like whether you were talking about the gym and you need advice on how you want to get bigger. It completely depends on who you are, what type of person you are, what your gym routine looks like up until then, what your diet is, what your sleep is like. These are things that if you were to go to a professional with, it take a lot of time to get out onto the table for them to understand your situation, which is just a lot of money. Like that's a lot of resources being spent. And with AI, you can just get all of that and more every single day, every single second for like 20 USD a month.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest value adds it has is, and also how I think that people are using it wrong. You can get such amazing information when it understands your situation and your goals. And I think that's the problem. People just do surface level prompts like, how do I do this? But it's more like, this is my situation. These are my goals. These are my priorities. How do I do this? It's completely different because your advice changes depending on the position you're at. If you go to a consultant about a certain thing that you want fixed, a certain solution, the advice that they give you is going to depend on who you are, what your situation is, what your goals are, what you prioritize. It's going to change. And I think that's one of the great value adds that ChatGPT has over something like Googling, is that you have it tailored to your specific needs. I think it's just a huge level up.
Yeah, and it's new. Like we were never able to do that before. Never able to get access to that level of contextualized information at this instantly or this cheaply, and at this point in life. Like people like us, poor people, people who don't have infinite resources to get the best advice from the best people. They would just be taking generic advice, make all the same mistakes as everyone else, and keep plodding along. And now suddenly you can get better advice that better suits your situation, so you actually end up where you want to end up. And that's something else I think is worth talking about. That like generic advice kind of pigeonholes you into generic outcomes and like generic goals. And I think now you have the artistic freedom to say, this is who I want to be. This is where I want to end up. This is exactly what it looks like and what I think it should be. How do I get to that exact point?
Yeah, I think it's so right. And you talked about the financial limitations of not being able to access certain information. I do think that investing in information, acquiring knowledge from people ahead of you is still the best way to learn. But I think if you're someone who can't currently afford whatever the person above you is teaching, then consult Dr. ChatGPT until you get yourself to the point where you can afford to acquire that information. I still think the fastest way to acquire will be to continue to purchase information for people who are ahead of you. But ChatGPT does just allow you to do it. Probably not on the same level, but it gets you pretty close for a fraction of the price, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's giving you feedback. Essentially, if you're making changes and there's differences, there's outcomes that are being recorded, measured, tracked, then, you can instantly get feedback from a thing that has context of where you want to head, so it can give you that personalized advice. Yeah, it's a huge level up.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I think the biggest way I'm using ChatGPT right now is managing my projects. For those of you guys who are familiar with some of the things I'm doing, I have a few little side quests I'm doing. All right, I have language learning. I have the running, trying to run a marathon a month. As of Toby's recommendation, well, not really recommendation, but I was following in your footsteps. And I also have trying to get in good shape, sort of bodybuilding, trying to build muscle, trying to get stronger. I have these different projects, and I basically just have a project, like a ChatGPT project for each of these things, right? And ChatGPT knows exactly what I want out of this, how I want to do it. For example, trying to construct the best bodybuilding program, you can do that for the information, on the internet, which is great. But that's not the best bodybuilding program if you also want to run a marathon every month and get better at doing that, right? They're two very different things. So being able to say, okay, I have these two goals. I prioritize this one slightly over the other one. This is the level of work I'm willing to put in. This isn't the focus of my life. This is something that I want to 80-20. And being able to derive raw inputs from it has been pretty awesome. Having these inputs, because we talk a lot about the inputs. And I think if you're someone who can be consistent, then if you are able to derive inputs, actions, so for example, okay, you need to do these exercises, X workouts per week, X runs per week at this heart rate, right? It's giving you inputs. If you're someone who can be consistent and actually do them, then the information is very valuable because you can receive inputs to do them, and then feed all of your results back to ChatGPT. It can then evaluate it and then continue to give you more refined inputs. So I got really nerdy about this. I put every single run that I've ever done for the entire year since I've started running, I put it through ChatGPT. What was my pace? What was my heart rates for different paces? How far did I go? All of these metrics, I gave ChatGPT everything. I also gave ChatGPT what was my weight every single morning, how many calories did I eat, how many workouts did I do, how much weight and reps did I do for every single set of every single workout for last year. Just a huge amount of data, and it can just give you such insane advice, and then can keep giving you inputs that will keep upgrading and improving over time. And it's very powerful if you can actually stick to those inputs. I mean, we had a full podcast on this consistency and being able to become a consistent person, because if you can actually just stick to these, it's very easy to forecast where you're going to be.
Yeah, and it's also easier when it seems like it's more valuable to you, which it is. Like you were saying there that when you give it all of this context, it knows who you are, what you want. The advice it gives you is more valuable, and therefore you hold that advice in higher regard. You're more likely to do that input, and you're probably more likely to be consistent with it because you feel, okay, well, this is really good, valuable, contextualized advice that I've been given. It is what I should follow. It is the North Star. It is, the thing that's moving the needle. You can relieve yourself of the questioning. Oh, is this actually what I should be doing? Oh, what should I? But that person's doing that, or like, that's the thing that creeps into the back of everyone's mind when they're trying to become better at anything. You're constantly comparing yourselves to others, trying to glean, oh, what's that little hack that they have? What's that next bit of information that I need? I feel like having Dr. ChatGPT allows you to kind of just hone in on something that's giving you that reassurance and that feedback that, like, yes, this is the path, you're on it.
Yeah, and it can slap you in the wrist as well. Like if you're, okay, you have to do 4 workouts a week, 2 upper, 2 lower, and you're doing that for a while, and then you're like, I want to switch to push-pull legs, and it's like, no, no, this is what you're going to do.
This is terrible for you.
Yeah, these are the inputs. They don't change until you give me some data that proves otherwise. Like, just keep doing this. I think a lot of people get really caught in trying to over-optimize when the reality is if you just do the right inputs consistently over a long enough time horizon, you'll get to the outcome. It's not about over optimizing things. ChatGPT can help improve those inputs, but it's fantastic that we've coupled this with dopamine rewiring. And we actually discussed this in the last podcast. The last podcast was completely about dopamine rewiring, but that was essentially about living without online entertainment. And a big part of living without online entertainment is just having less noise, less unsolicited advice from lots of people, less, oh, this is the new hack that's going to get you X, Y, and Z, less noise. So when you combine it with ChatGPT, you have no exterior noise. You just have inputs that you're receiving from something that's purely designed based on your goals, based on your objectives, based on your priorities, to give you the raw inputs that will get you to your goal. And you don't have 50 people in your ear telling you to do different things. It becomes very easy to just stick to those inputs that will eventually give you the outcome you want.
Yeah. It's almost like you're the monk in the monastery and like you only have this one person talking to you all the time and the rest of that is just silence. You're just sitting there thinking about what they've said rather than, just being in like New York City and there's just billboards and people yelling at you, try this new meal, download this app. Like this is helpful for you. And like everyone's trying to target everything to you so you buy or you consume. And no, instead you just have Dr. ChatGPT telling you like, here's what you need and this is why you need it. And again, it corrects you when you inevitably try and stray off the path. But I think that only works if you're someone who is consistent using it. Like if all you ever do is go to it and say, okay, here's all my context, here's all my data, like create me the best, most optimized thing for this. 3 months later. All right, here's all my new context. Here's all the new data and like give me the best optimized thing for this. Like you're not getting the value out of that. It only comes from like the consistency of the check-in and the feedback that comes from allowing it to predict these long-term outcomes.
Yeah, that's the big one, right? If you can be consistent with the inputs, it's very easy to predict where you're going to end up. Like ChatGPT will know, okay, you just keep doing these things and this is where you will be. But ChatGPT doesn't know that, you're going to be inconsistent and fall off and quit. It just assumes you're going to do it. And based on that assumption, it will be correct, which is really exciting because it almost allows you to see the future. If you're someone who can be consistent, then you can, barring injuries or some sort of external life circumstance, you can very much predict what your future is going to be like if you can be consistent with the inputs. And ChatGPT is as relatively accurate as we think it is.
Yeah, you are the biggest uncertainty in this equation. So your consistency will be the difference between you getting the outcomes that ChatGPT says or not. Like, as long as you're giving it all the context and you're doing the inputs, then it's going to be accurate to the context that you've given it. Like if you've missed out some major detail about your life, you don't tell it that you're a smoker. Like, okay, that's on you. But yeah, I think you are the biggest level of uncertainty. And once you kind of realize that, and then you can leverage it and you can start getting excited by the long-term projections that it gives you, is because okay, well, I'm going to do these things. Like you've said that to me multiple times, like, ChatGPT said, my physique is going to be like this in 5 years. And like, I know that's going to happen because I'm not going to I'm always going to be doing 4 workouts a week. And like, I'm always going to be, progressive overload and doing like, these are things that are so ingrained into your identity. It's who you are. It's what you do, that that, okay, I'm going to do these things. Therefore ChatGPT is telling me I'm going to get this result. So you can be excited by that possibility or that future, not even possibility, that future.
Yeah. And so I want to dig further into this. Who do you think this works well for? Like, what kind of person do you think is going to benefit the most from using the AI?
Yeah. To me, it's people that have like a blend of being like structured, regimented, consistent, and like the kind of KPI tracking metrics, writing things down. And also you have the creativity to be able to describe what you want in a lot of detail. Because the clearer that is in your head and the better you are at articulating it to yourself and to ChatGPT, the more context there is. Like the better you can describe it, the better ChatGPT can imagine it and predict it. So I think if you have both sides of that coin, both the like analytical, recording, metric, and then also creative, descriptive thinking, I think that is when you really get the most out of ChatGPT or AI
Yeah.
in general.
That's a very good point. If you are someone who is not tracking, then it's very hard for you to provide data to ChatGPT, and it's very hard for ChatGPT to try and refine the way it sees your progress and how it should be giving inputs. You do have to become more of an analytical person. You have to derive more data. And it's not just more data for the sake of more data. Worthwhile prompt to ChatGPT at the very start. What is meaningful data that I should be collecting? Very important, because you don't have to track everything. It's another 80-20. No, you really shouldn't. What are the 80-20s? What are the few things that I can track that are going to give me 80% of the vision of how I'm progressing? Because the other thing is, I don't want to fill out 50 cells of a spreadsheet every single day when I do a certain task. When I go for a run, I don't want to be giving it every single thing. I basically give it 3 things. And it's like, okay, if you know these 3 things, that's all you need. But you do have to become more analytical. And it's funny because it seems a bit weird, but now when I'm in the gym, I walk around with my phone out with an Excel spreadsheet, because I just track everything, all the reps, all the weight, all the sets, because it's just incredibly valuable to have this data extrapolated and saved so they can better understand how are you progressing, how are you moving. It gives clarity and vision. If you're not tracking, I mean, they say if you're not tracking, you're slacking, or if you're not tracking, you're lacking. But you do need to have a certain level of data available, because otherwise you just will not see your results.
Yeah, and you touched on a great point there. It's like using ChatGPT to define what is the best KPI here, essentially. Like, what should I be tracking? Or like, I think an underutilized aspect is getting ChatGPT to ask you questions, to allow you to give more context, to understand you better. Like, let it become the interviewer and you become the interviewee, and let it and ask me more and dig deeper and dig deeper. And like, I mean, when I first got a 9-to-5 job and I was starting to enter the realm of KPIs, I remember someone saying, like, if the KPI becomes the goal, it's no longer a KPI. Like, if you're tracking like calories consumed, and then like your goal becomes, now I just need to hit the KPI. Like, that is the goal, hit the KPI. It's like, no. The KPI was tracking your progress to the goal. Like, you have to maintain that distance between you, the KPI, and the goal. And I think ChatGPT helps you do that if you allow it to. But I definitely think it's something to become aware of if you are going to become someone who is more analytical, who is tracking more things. That it is just something you are tracking that is getting you towards your goal. Yeah. It is not the goal. Yeah.
That's a very good point. You have to have the North Star. You have to have the overarching goal. I mean, had a whole podcast on this where we talked about having goals aligned with you and genuinely having goals. But you need to have your North Star and you're working to it. And as you said, the KPIs are KPIs to make sure you're on track. They're certain metrics, but keep the end goal in sight. And ChatGPT will know that because it has a fantastic memory. Generally won't forget things.
Better than yours, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of memory, like, you're giving it all this information about you, like body weight, calories burned, like run data, workout data, all these things. Like, you just trust it fully with all that information?
Yeah, with certain information. I wouldn't trust it in the sense that if my reputation is on the line, I will only use knowledge that I've acquired from ChatGPT to do something. Especially what I've found is in the professional services sector. For example, and this relates home, I was talking to a lawyer, quite a high-ranked lawyer, and she was talking about how someone was caught using ChatGPT in one of their reports. And that goes out and they're exposed in court, and it is an absolute disgrace. Their entire career is ruined because there's still not the trust in that. You can't stake your credibility behind ChatGPT at this point, at this time right now. So if it comes to putting your credibility on the line and stating a claim, I think you probably can't necessarily rely on ChatGPT for that. Outside of that and any legal circumstances, What I think it works really well for is when there are things that are very quickly testable. I derive an input, I do it, and then I can get an output and then feed it back in. I can test this quickly, okay? I can know an outcome fast and I can keep testing and iterating and improving. But if it's some sort of underlying fact, right? If it's something that I have to present to someone as this is the reality, I'm not gonna trust ChatGPT at this point.
Okay, that's an interesting differentiation.
How do you see that?
I mean, I definitely give it first of all, I give it full trust with my information. Like, I don't think anything malicious is going to happen. I'm not like worried about like my data protection at that point. Like, I think that the value that you get from it is like worth taking whatever risk that is. But I wouldn't have my full trust in it to give me anything topical or that wasn't derived off my personal experience and context. Like, if you're just inputting other people's like ideas and thoughts into like a project that is specifically for you, then like you're opening yourself up to getting outputs that aren't, I don't want to say true, but just aren't right for you. And I think that's because your inputs were never true to begin with. So I think like my overarching idea here is that ChatGPT won't disagree with you sometimes when it needs to. So if you're feeding it subpar information, sometimes it'll give back to you very subpar outputs. But ultimately, I think a lot of that comes down to what you're giving it. But I've had a few circumstances where I wished it would have disagreed with me more. And I think it was just, it could sense my enthusiasm about an idea, or like some ad copy I was writing. And I'm like, and I think this, and this is really catchy to me, improve it. It's like, it'll never jump in and say, it's actually not catchy, you need to start from scratch. But I think I can, look back on that and start taking ownership and responsibility for not putting too much of your own idea about what you think it is before you give it to ChatGPT, because most of the time it'll coerce you down that ecosystem of what your own thoughts are.
Yeah, not putting judgment like this is a good idea or this is a bad idea. Just letting it do its thing. I do think that's where it's currently struggling, is when there's any form of subjectivity. I think there's certain things that it's incredibly good at doing. I think a lot of the fitness stuff it's really good at because the outcomes are so predictable and so reliable. Something like, how does my ad copy look? It just doesn't know at this point. Something like, create me a good YouTube thumbnail or YouTube title. It's still not at that level yet. I think the more objective the things are, the better it is at that. I think it's really good at giving you objective outcomes, but as soon as there's subjectivity in there, I am questioning it a bit more. Certain things, fantastic. Fitness, great. Certain other things, how does my copy look? Particularly language-related things. How does my copy look? How does this title look? How does this thumbnail look? Anything creative which requires subjectivity and human interpretation, I think it's not at that level yet.
Yeah, like it's a lot of complexity, like alongside like the nuances that are required for like language and creativity. So you are like asking it a lot without even realizing that what you're asking it really to do, especially for something that is just predicting, the next word. But yeah, no, I agree. And like that's the downfalls that I've experienced. But yeah, I think the opposite is true. Like the metric things are just, they're so guaranteed and you can get such good valuable advice from them that like as a whole, like that's why I've been drawn to it and have made it such a core part of how I tackle any new task. Like it's something that I can rely upon.
I want to go a bit into how we are using ChatGPT right now. I won't speak for you, but for me, it's one of my primary information sources, and I don't have a lot of information sources. How do you see this working together with living without online entertainment? Because we talk about living without online entertainment and how much of a level up this has on your brain, on your life, on your general enjoyment, your productivity. but it comes across as I'm against technology or you shouldn't use technology. And I think it's the opposite. We actually truly understand how valuable technology is when you're utilizing it properly. So how has your experience been so living without online entertainment whilst utilizing ChatGPT or any AI?
Yeah, I think the example you gave at the beginning like rings true to me of only having one voice in your ear is just louder and more valuable than having 50 different voices. And when you have access to all of this online entertainment and you're constantly consuming, like that is taking up your processing power and affecting your ideas and your outputs and your opinions about the things you're doing, whether you want it to or not. Like there's just, a buildup of junk essentially that moves along with all of your thoughts and opinions about what you're doing. And so when you remove that, not only does what you receive land better, like it's heard more. It's if you're able to really take it on, and I think you're able to get to action faster because it seems like it's distinct, definitive information that is usually leading you directly to an action. Whereas you're probably just overstimulated with way too much advice that's causing you to have no action at all. And I think there's no bigger difference that you realize than when you start leading with action. And so I think this is almost like a gateway into that.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of our podcasts. We talked about leading with action. I think that's the huge one, is you have the individual piece of information, which is generally a input that you can do, an action that you can do, and just taking that action and then seeing what happens and then coming back and going, okay, this is what happens. And then continuing to go through that loop. I think it's super powerful. Being able to have this at our fingertips, so easily accessible, I think we're really undervaluing it. In terms of how much of an impact it can have, I think one of the sad things about information in general is that we put so much weight on the information based on how much we pay for it. If you pay for unlimited information for $20 a month, you're not weighting that information very heavily. But this is something that is trained to know you, your specific desires, your wants, your needs, as strongly as possible, with the entire internet downloaded into its brain, and is able to give you a result tailored to your specific needs. That's really valuable. If you spent $1,000 for the answer to that prompt, I'm sure you would take action on it. But because you spend $20 a month, you go, okay, cool, that's interesting. I think it's because we receive so much information all the time, and the more advice you receive, the less you value it in general. And I think if we truly start valuing the information more and respecting the information by taking action on it, I think we'll see some big progress.
And I think when you have set it up like a project and you've given it your goal and there's this kind of already long-term implications of what you're asking for, it gives you reasons to come back with the data, with the output of the input, which it just gives you more reason to do the input, which is the biggest thing that you need to do, is just actually do the thing. So it's like it's giving you, you should also do the thing, because then you can tell ChatGPT that you did the thing and it'll tell you good or bad, or it'll tell you what that means.
Yeah, and it'll give you a little pat in the back almost every time.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Well done.
I now, after every one of my runs, I'll finish my run and then I have a Garmin and I'll just give it my data, and it's really exciting. It's like, here's what I did. This is great. And it's generally been good because I always do what it says. Last week I had a run where I didn't put in as much effort as I should have, and it shadowed me a little bit for that. I was like, what? You're usually nice to me. What the hell? But it's pretty awesome. And I think that's a great point you made, is feeding it data all the time just gets you in the habit of just constantly using it, checking up on it, and just keeping this project alive in the front of your mind. It's one of the great things that I did with my projects that I've been doing, the learning the languages, the running, the bodybuilding, is that I was putting a lot of it out on YouTube, which just kept me thinking about it. It's front of mind. Now that I'm moving away from so directly posting that stuff, I need a new reason to continue to keep up with that. And the ChatGPT is a great one. It's like the silent accountability that you have. Even though it's a robot, I feel like I have a reputation to uphold with ChatGPT.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I mean, we're talking about how ChatGPT will cause you to lead with action more. There are obviously some downsides to leading with action. I know for me and for you, it was running into, overuse injuries when we started increasing running volume. Like, how do you see ChatGPT also being able to help in those situations?
Well, first of all, I have to say all the overuse injuries, they happened before I asked ChatGPT for advice. In fact,
Okay.
ChatGPT would have told me, no, that is
Don't do
dumb.
this.
You should not do that. I've actually yet to encounter a situation where I've gone to ChatGPT, it's told me to do an input, and I've thought, this has burnt me in any way. This has been bad. Very, very rarely do we regret doing actions, doing things. The regret usually comes from not doing things. And you'll have to tell me about your experience here, but I've actually never experienced ChatGPT telling me to do something and me regretting it.
Yeah, no, nothing comes to mind either. Yeah.
But
I guess what I wanted to talk about was when, like, ChatGPT will make you lead with action, I think, more often. Sometimes when you lead with action, you uncover pitfalls that you maybe didn't anticipate. For me, starting up my running journey, running a marathon a month, increasing my volume significantly in a short period of time, I ran into all sorts of ITB issues and just strength deficiencies. And I was then able to feed that back into ChatGPT to get diagnoses and course corrections, which then kept me on track, which kept the dream alive of a marathon a month. And I'm now 14 marathons in.
crazy.
So although I think maybe someone would look at my journey and say, oh, but but this, or but you had this injury. But being able to use ChatGPT probably saved me over $1,000 worth of physio appointments.
Yeah.
That's $1,000 that I got back, basically.
Okay, well, we need a tangent into this. I think that a lot of GPs have basically become useless, and unless there's something they physically have to do to your body, like cut something off or burn something off, diagnosis-wise, I think most of them have become useless. And part of the reason is that you might say ChatGPT doesn't always give me the correct diagnosis. Neither does your GP. In fact, I reckon it's about 50-50 with GPs at this point. They're just throwing out these false diagnoses. And this might be controversial, but I honestly think that ChatGPT can be more effective than most GPs. As long as you give it the right prompts, tell it the right things, and ask it to ask you questions, it'll probably be more effective and save you a lot of money.
I think the only time that a doctor is going to be better for you than ChatGPT when you're oh, I'm just going to go, GP to check out this thing that I have, is if you're going to a family GP that you've been to for many, many years and your family's been to for many, many years, and they actually care about you. They think about what you've told them outside of your appointment. Then they'll be able to connect dots like doctors can because they have this wealth of knowledge and, find, nuances to your situation and give you, great diagnoses and outputs and, and help you get back on track. But if you're using GPs how I use GPs and seeing a different one, whoever's available, whoever's bulk billed at the time, you're better off asking ChatGPT to ask you questions to better understand your condition to get to its own diagnosis, because it has a similar level of understanding. Can I say that? About all the possible things that could be wrong with you. And all it needs is the context, and trying to get across the context of your life, who you are, everything that you're feeling right now in 15 minutes sitting in front of a doctor is almost impossible.
Yeah.
But you can do that with ChatGPT. So I think that's why you get a lot of time better experiences for sure, and better outputs sometimes.
And that's probably why I think they're so much more effective than GPs, is that it's been over 5 years since I've been to a GP. At least.
You're out the game.
There's no plethora of knowledge that the GP has about my history or anything like that. I just haven't gone to them. My uncle, which I love him and I find this so funny, is he wears this as a badge of honor. He's like, I haven't been to the doctor in 20 years. And I'm fine. I'm good. He had to go to the doctor to get his COVID vaccine. And that was the last time, that was the first time in 20 years he'd been to the doctor. There's some people that go all the time and some people that never go. But I think now if you're someone who hasn't gone to the doctor a lot, then a ChatGPT is probably going to give you better answers. Unless you're getting your blood tested or you're getting something removed or doing something invasive, ChatGPT is going to do a pretty good job.
Yeah. If you're like at the early stages of like, oh, I have this like what I think is like a common or like novel problem, like this is hurting or like, you know, this feels funny. Like you're gonna get a much better outcome just using ChatGPT, and I think that's what it's great for. It's like the physio baseline GP for like a one-off issue. But even when I'm saying that, I also think that so many people struggle with these like complex chronic issues that have just like a multitude of factors sprinkled in. They're taking this medication and their sleep is like this and their diet's like this, and all these like fundamental aspects to like your immune system and your health are at play. And you end up just like throwing the kitchen at it with a doctor and going down all these different routes. ChatGPT is able to like synthesize a lot of information, a lot of context if you can get it all out. And like I've had so many people talk to me about experiences where eventually they come to a diagnosis that, you know, a doctor was able to get down to based on like a piece of information that comes in or like a dot that's connected. But like you should be, and it's because it takes so much time to draw that whole tree, give all that context when you're having to sit down for $200 30-minute appointments.
Yeah, it stings, doesn't it? It stings.
Anyway, I think we've gone down the doctor tangent enough here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think this is like a huge part of both of our lives that we've been using to unlock more of our potential. And I think 100%. It's made us infinitely more productive.
Yeah, I think if you can stay consistent with the inputs, actually genuinely respect and value the information by doing the things it tells you to do, right? Giving it the right context and the right information and letting it properly understand you, this can be a huge tool. And especially if you follow some of the stuff we do and you're living without online entertainment and you have this voice that is very powerful. This is the most powerful organism, non-living, whatever, but it is the most powerful thing, or one of the most powerful things that we have right now, and we have it in our pockets. And I think we're not utilizing it the way that we could be, but this is a huge unlock if you get to use it properly. I asked some people, are you using ChatGPT? And they're like, yeah, not really. And it's like, what? How? This thing like runs my life. This is, I consult this thing probably 4 times a day. I'm on ChatGPT at least. This is something that I'm on all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's like all technologies, like it's such a powerful tool, which means that it requires you to use it correctly to get all the value with it. It's the same as the grandma that has the iPhone 16. Like, it needs to be used in the right way. But I think if I was, you know, an entrepreneur and somebody wanted to be more productive and I only had 20 USD a month of extra income that I could spend, this is probably what I'm spending it on.
Yeah.
Because once you get the uses right, once you start extracting the value that's there on offer, like you probably won't spend a better $20. This is becoming a giant ad read.
It is. And here's our affiliate link. Like, no. Yeah, I think it is. I think it is crazy. I think there is a serious game in just continuing to pay for information to get what is ahead of you and just bring it back to the present and continue to move forward. You can just understand things faster. ChatGPT is just the first thing to pay for because that will get you most of it, right? And then after that, you can keep investing in people slightly ahead of you and you can keep learning those things and developing because you don't know it's just not even in your wheelhouse. Like you didn't even realize it existed. And sometimes when you can pay for information from people above you, that they can give you that. But the first place to start has to be investing in in chatters. I mean, the free stuff's great as well, but I think if you're spending $10 a month on Amazon, $10 a month on Netflix, and $10 a month on the Battle Pass in Fortnite, I would probably invest in ChatGPT over those things. Right?
Yeah, for sure. I think your return there's going to be completely outweighed, and I mean it links in great with what we were just talking about in the previous podcast with dopamine rewiring. I mean, these are hopefully subscriptions that you will be cancelling very, very soon.
Yeah.
For good reason. So, I mean, here's a great outlet to put that to use.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, if you have 3 things to do right now to effectively use AI to become more productive, what are you doing?
Align your goals with you. Track the right KPIs and be consistent. I mean, we've harped on about all 3 of these things many a time before, but let's start with the basics. Like, have your North Star, be heading, in the right direction towards a goal that is going to be fulfilling to you, where you're not going to have the what now moment that's, has long time horizons. Great. Title the project in ChatGPT. Track meaningful KPIs. So ask ChatGPT to define what it needs to be tracked to be able to get you to that goal, because it will be able to tell you. And be consistent, tracking it and feeding it back into ChatGPT. Become the type of person that uses ChatGPT on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, to get more insight into what you're doing and to understand how you're progressing. Like, these are the 3 things that I would do to use AI as to be more productive on a whole.
Yeah, I think if you did those 3 things, you're going to be a lot more productive. You're going to have a lot more clarity as well. Especially when we start with aligning goals with you. If you have clarity on what your goal is, and then from there, you can derive inputs that are going to help you get there, it's going to be really valuable.
Yeah, and I think there's a reason that we touched on all those things on separate podcasts. They're key fundamental aspects, and essentially what we're doing with AI here is giving it context about what we think, what we believe, what we want. So you have to be that person. You have to think about these goals. You have to be a consistent person to be able to get the value from it. That's where the value lies. So you got to put action to it for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So your 3 things you would do today to be more productive with AI.
Okay. So first of all, make it understand you. Secondly, set up the projects and feed it the data. And then thirdly, receive the inputs, do the inputs, give the outputs, repeat. Those are the 3. I'll break those down because I hate it quickly. But first of all, make it understand you, right? You talked about creating the project. Create the project for what the goal is, okay? If you have a ChatGPT about running, okay? I want to run a marathon a month, right? Whatever it is, but create the project. Make it understand you. What is your history? What is everything about you? Ask it, what do you need to know to understand me better? Okay, absolutely the first step, and particularly making sure you define what your goal is and what are your priorities, right? For example, I wanted to simultaneously, try and max out my natural physique, get bigger, and run at the same time. It needs to know my priorities. For me, I said my priority is maxing out my physique. I want to do this first. I care more about this than running faster marathons. So it knows that, and it's then going to go, okay, well, I need to tailor the specific way that we're doing our training around that. So making sure it knows you and your priorities and what your goals are, absolutely the first thing. Then we want to set up our projects and feed it the data. Okay, this is kind of what I already mentioned, making sure you have the data in there. It needs to know as much about you as possible. Needs to know your history. If you want to set up a running ChatGPT, then it should know all the runs you did. If you want to set up a bodybuilding one, okay, then it should know, okay, these are my progress pictures, like this is what I've done, this is my history over time. If you want to make it about your business, it has to know, okay, this is my history in my business, this has been my revenue, like this has been my shortcomings, whatever. It needs to know you, you need to feed it that data. And then the third one is this feedback loop that you need to start. And that is receiving the inputs. You have to ask ChatGPT, like, okay, what do I need to be doing? You have to receive the inputs, then you have to do the inputs. That means you have to respect the information you're receiving and actually do it. Then after you do it, you're gonna get outputs. You feed it the outputs, and then you ask for more inputs. And if they don't change, you just keep doing it. I think that's the big thing. We talk a lot about mental masturbation. I've spoken before about how you can watch all the self-improvement videos that you want to, but if you don't change your actions, nothing about your life is going to change. If you spend all day on ChatGPT and you give it a bunch of prompts and do all this stuff, but you don't change your actions, nothing will change. That's why you have to run through this feedback cycle. Get the inputs, do the inputs, get the outputs, give it the outputs. And then it's going to give you inputs and you just need to keep doing it. And it's just going to understand you better and better and better. You're going to move towards your goals. You're going to encounter different obstacles. It's going to show you how to overcome them. And it will take you pretty far. It'll take you in a really, really good place. I think if you can do that, you're going to be ahead of a lot of people right now using AI.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think one thing to be aware of here is the better your goal is, and I'm defining better as something that's long-term and aligned with you, the more the answer to that feedback is going to be the same thing. Like, be prepared for it to be the same thing for a long time, because you're going to need to do one thing many more times than you think you're going to have to before it's going to say, okay, that's enough of that. Now this is the best thing for you. And I think it's really exciting when you jump onto ChatGPT and you get this output and you're like, oh, this is a cool, yeah, no, this is a great thing and I'm going to do that. Day 300 into it saying, okay, just do it again. Like you're going to lose a bit of the magic, which is why I think like setting the right goals and like it having all that information and you valuing it to the point where you're actually going to listen to it is so important, because day 306, if doing that thing is still the thing that it's saying, then you just got to do that thing.
Yeah. Doing the thing for long enough that it would just be unreasonable not to get the goal you want to get. It's pretty simple, but it's just not easy.
No.
Right?
Well, yeah, most good things are, and we've talked about these equations many times, but yeah, consistency, long time horizons, and like big things are possible.
Yeah. With the right inputs over a long enough time horizon, doing it consistently, like you will just achieve anything. As long as you have the right inputs, it will happen. If you have the right inputs and you're consistent, it will happen. And ChatGPT will help you make sure those are the right inputs.
Yeah, and it'll allow you to visualize the goal, which can be really helpful sometimes.
Well, that's the great thing. If you can be consistent, is the goal is there. If you're genuinely just brutally consistent, then it's like, this is the outcome of you doing those inputs. This is the reward. It's almost like, okay, it's just 2 years shipping time. It'll arrive to you in 400 business days, but you will get this. It is the outcome as long as you can just be consistent. And that's one of the big flaws people have, is they think, great, I have the information, that's it. But the information was just the start. The information allows you to make sure the inputs are right, but doing the inputs is going to be the hardest thing always. But if you can do that, then ChatGPT is pretty awesome.
Yeah. And here you are receiving a bit of information, and now there's an input left for you. So I think we know what to do.
Yeah. Well, I think there's enough information now to start using ChatGPT properly to the best of your ability. We are by no means experts in AI. We're just people who use it, right?
Far from.
No, I don't spend a huge amount of time researching like how to get ahead of the AI game or anything like that. It's simply, how can I use this in my day-to-day life to become more effective as an individual, how to get more out of my time, how to be more productive, how to get to my results and do it properly. And you don't have to be an expert to do it. I think you'll start to figure it out when you start getting reps in, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to be an expert in AI. You can just become an expert user of AI. It is just a super tool in your toolbox. So that's what we are, and that's what I'm advocating for.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. So let's go after it and actually do it. If you don't change your actions, you will not change your life. So this video was purely entertainment unless you do something with it. Hopefully you do something with it. If you want to do something else, you can join the Modern Monk community at school.com/Modern Monk. You can talk to Toby and I. There's lots of great resources. We actually have a Modern Monk AI, which is trained based on all of the databases within the community. So that's one way we're using it. But yeah, hopefully I'll see you inside there. Otherwise, we'll see you in another episode.
See you then.
Cheers.